Everybody knows Jesus was a carpenter, and he did that job for years. But guess what? That wasn't his calling. That wasn't the reason he left heaven and came to earth, but he still did it. And he didn't complain about it. He didn't drag his feet. He didn't say, man, this isn't what I'm here for. I'm bigger than this. I'm above this. No, even though he understood this wasn't his highest assignment, he still performed that job with excellence. He didn't half step. He didn't slack off. He honored God in the work that was right in front of him. Now think about that. Jesus, the Son of God, spent years doing something that wasn't his ultimate purpose. So why do you think God had Jesus do that for so many years? Because preparation doesn't always look spiritual. Most of the time it looks ordinary. It looks routine like everyday life. People think God only prepares you in the spectacular moments, the miracles, the visions, the deep spiritual experiences. But God prepares you in the mundane, through the things you don't even think matter. He uses your job, your responsibilities, the people you have to deal with daily. He uses the struggles, your schedule, your discipline, the quiet seasons where it feels like nothing special is happening. That's where the real spiritual conditioning happens. See, God will shape you long before he places you. He'll form your character before he elevates your calling. He's not going to just send you out there like that. He'll strengthen your patience before he expands your platform. He'll teach you about obedience before he gives you influence. And a lot of times, you're being trained spiritually through things that don't even feel spiritual. Let me break that down. When you're faithful at work, even when you hate the job, that's preparation. When you show up on time and do your job with integrity, when you choose not to justify cutting corners, when you obey God at home, in your marriage, with your kids, with your finances, that's preparation. When you hold your peace instead of clapping back, when you serve and don't get credit for it, when you forgive people who never apologize, all of that is preparation. You see how God works? He's molding you in the background while you think nothing's happening. Think about David. Where was he right after he was anointed king? Back in the field with the sheep. Why? Because even though he was called to be king, God still had to shape him as a shepherd. The discipline, the consistency, the humility, those were all skills God would use later in the palace. Look at Moses. He grew up in a palace, but he spent 40 years shepherding sheep in the desert before God sent him to shepherd a whole nation. Those years in the desert made him strong enough to lead Israel. Look at Joseph. God gave Joseph a dream, but Joseph didn't step into that dream the next day. He didn't go from the promise to the palace overnight. Before he reached his calling, he went through a whole process of preparation. He was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery. Then he ended up working in Potiphar's house. And notice this, he still worked with excellence, even though that was not his calling. He didn't deserve to be there, but he stayed faithful. Then what happened? He was lied on. He was thrown into prison. He was forgotten about by people he helped. But the scripture says, and the Lord was with Joseph, not just when he got promoted, not just when he interpreted dreams, not just when he became second in command, but in every situation, in Potiphar's house, in prison, in the lowest moments, God was with him and caused everything he did to prosper. That means Joseph wasn't alone in the pit. He wasn't alone in slavery. He wasn't alone in the prison. God was shaping him, strengthening him, teaching him, and preparing him the whole time. If Joseph had stepped into leadership too early, he wouldn't have had the character, the humility, or the wisdom to sustain it. The pit prepared him. Potiphar's house prepared him. Prison prepared him. Everything Joseph went through was training for something bigger than he could see. And that's the same thing God is doing with you. You may feel stuck in a place that doesn't match your calling. You may feel overlooked, mistreated, forgotten. You might be in a season that feels nothing like what God showed you. But just like Joseph, God is with you. and God is preparing you. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is random. Every season is shaping you for the next one. Preparation never looks like the promise. And that's the point. If you only grew in the spotlight, you'd think the spotlight made you. But God builds you in private, so when He puts you in public, you don't collapse under the weight of it. Let me take it back to Jesus for a second. If anybody deserved to skip the preparation process, it was Him. But He didn't. He embraced it. He submitted to it. He honored the season He was in, even though He knew a greater season was coming. And that's a word for somebody. Don't despise the season God is using to prepare you. You may feel like you're just working, just raising the kids, just doing errands, just paying bills, just surviving the week. But God is using every bit of that to shape you into who you need to be for your calling. Sometimes the season that feels the most ordinary is the season that shapes you the most. So please know, your consistency matters. Your integrity matters. Your obedience matters. Your sacrifices, your everyday choices matter. God is preparing you through all of it. You may not see it yet, but one day you'll step into your calling and be like, oh, that's why God had me go through all of that. He's getting you ready for the next phase. So you're not behind and you're not forgotten. You're being prepared. Hey friend, don't just play this once and move on. Let it sink in. Success doesn't come from what you do once. It comes from what you do over and over. It's about consistency. That's the power of habit. When you keep feeding your mind, things will start to shift in your life. So I challenge you to listen to this 3 times a day. Make this part of your routine. And when you finish a day, let me know in the comments. And if this helped you, share it, hit like, and subscribe. Let's keep growing together.